If you want to have war, you will get war. If you want to destroy China, you will be destroyed. If you want to impose nuclear war on China, you will be wiped out by nuclear war. This is very serious. China's policy is very clear. China will not fire the first shot, but China will not allow you to fire the second shot. If you have not watched the Victory Day parade in Beijing on September the 3rd, one of the weapons China demonstrated, we call it 61, because it can contain 60 nuclear warheads plus one hydrogen bomb. Now, in the world of today, let me tell you, which country has hydrogen bomb? China is the only country with hydrogen bomb. And that ICBM can cover every corner of the world in less than 20 minutes and destroy any target in any corner of the world without any possibility of being intercepted.
But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We've seen war.
China is playing a very dirty game. Folks, very dirty. Nobody talks about it, but I see everything. I've seen the reports. While we're handling a huge situation in the Middle East, China is quietly, very quietly helping Iran. Money, technology, a lot of things you wouldn't believe. And Xi Jinping, he stands there. Calls himself a peacemaker. Sounds nice, right? But it's not real. He's smiling, and at the same time he's stabbing us right in the back. That's what's happening. It's not good. They want oil prices high, very high, so their economy looks strong. Meanwhile, America pays the price. People pay the price. That's not fair. That's cheating, and we don't like cheating. If China keeps doing this, supporting our enemies, gas prices will stay high, businesses will slow down, factories will suffer, and our great American workers will feel it the most. It could be a disaster, but here, the thing, under my leadership, America is stronger than ever before. We have the best economy, the toughest tariffs, the smartest deals,
President Xi, we've got a situation. The Strait of Hormuz, too important, the world depends on it. China depends on it even more. We are watching closely. Stability is in everyone's interest. I'll be very clear. I need two things from you. Silence. First, not Chinese oil ships going through Iran-controlled routes. Not one. Second, no weapons to Iran. Not now, not later. If this continues, it escalates. Fast.
China does not seek escalation. We seek balance. We will ensure Chinese vessels avoid conflict zones, and we will not provide weapons to Iran.
China, listen carefully. For many years, you have put high taxes on America. Nobody stopped you, but now I am stopping you. We put high taxes on China. Now America is getting more money. If you do not like this, that is not our problem. We will protect our country, America always first.
The U.S. has a secret plan for China. There is a rivalry shaping the future of the world, but unlike the wars of the past, it is not loud, not obvious, and not openly declared. It moves quietly through trade routes, military positioning, technology systems, and political influence. And at the center of it all stands a growing tension between the United States and China, two global powers watching each other closely, calculating every move, questioning every signal, and preparing for outcomes that may never be publicly acknowledged. For decades, the United States stood as the dominant force in global affairs with unmatched military reach, economic strength, and cultural influence. But slowly China began to rise, not suddenly but steadily, expanding its economy, strengthening its industries, modernizing its military, and extending its reach across continents through trade and infrastructure. At first, this rise seemed beneficial to the global system as markets expanded and cooperation increased. But over time, concern replaced optimism as China's ambitions appeared more strategic and more assertive, especially in key regions where influence determines power. And this is where the tension deepened, because the United States was no longer observing a developing nation, but a competitor capable of reshaping the global order. And behind public statements about cooperation and peace, there emerged deeper questions within policy circles, questions about power, dominance, and the future. What happens if China overtakes the United States economically? What happens if influence shifts? What happens if control over critical systems changes hands? These are not simple questions, and they do not produce simple answers. Instead, they lead to long-term planning, quiet adjustments, and strategic positioning. And this is where the idea of a so-called secret plan begins to take form, not as a single document or clear directive, but as a pattern of decisions, a series of moves that suggest preparation for multiple possibilities at once, because the Indo Pacific region has become the center of this silent rivalry, a vast space where trade flows, military presence matters, and influence determines outcomes. And as China expands within this region, the United States responds not with open confrontation, but with calculated presence, strengthening partnerships, increasing engagement, and ensuring that its role remains central. But this raises a deeper and more unsettling question. Is this simply a response to China's actions, or is it part of a broader design meant to shape the future before it fully unfolds? And if such a design exists, then it is not meant to be seen clearly. It is meant to operate quietly, influencing events without appearing aggressive, preparing for outcomes without declaring intentions. And this is what makes the rivalry so complex and so dangerous, because it is not just about what is happening now, but about what might happen next. And as both nations continue to rise and adapt, the question lingers in the background. What exactly is the United States preparing for, and how far is it willing to go to protect its position in a changing world? Power has never existed in isolation, and throughout history, nations have relied on alliances to extend their influence, protect their interests, and shape outcomes beyond their borders. And in the evolving rivalry between the United States and China, alliances have taken on a new and more strategic meaning, no longer just partnerships for stability, but instruments of positioning, influence, and long-term control. Across the Indo Pacific region, the United States has strengthened ties with key nations, deepening military cooperation, expanding defense agreements, and increasing joint operations, all of which appear on the surface as efforts to maintain peace and security. But beneath that surface lies a more complex structure, a network that connects nations in ways that extend beyond simple cooperation, a network that can respond quickly, adapt to changes, and maintain presence across critical regions. And this raises an important question. Are these alliances purely defensive, or are they part of a larger strategic design? Because if one wanted to influence the rise of a powerful competitor, it would not always require direct confrontation. Instead, it could involve shaping the environment around that competitor, building relationships with neighboring nations, ensuring influence across key locations, and creating a system where actions can be monitored and responded to effectively. And this approach is subtle, but powerful because it avoids open conflict while still maintaining control. And China is not unaware of this dynamic as it continues to build its own partnerships, invest in infrastructure, and expand its influence across regions that were once firmly aligned with the United States, creating a complex balance where cooperation and competition exist at the same time. But the deeper concern lies in the possibility that these alliances are not just reactions, but proactive measures designed to anticipate future scenarios, to prepare for shifts in power before they fully occur. And if that is true, then alliances become more than agreements. They become strategic tools that can shape the direction of global events. And this leads to an even more pressing question. What happens if this network continues to grow and strengthen? Does it remain a system of cooperation, or does it evolve into something more structured and more deliberate, something that quietly defines the limits within which China can expand? And if so, then the invisible wall created by alliances may be one of the most significant yet least understood elements of the broader strategy. While alliances and military presence are visible aspects of global power, there exists another battlefield that is far less obvious yet equally critical. A battlefield defined by innovation, control, and the ability to shape the future through technology. And in this silent but intense competition, the United States and China are engaged in a race that will likely determine not just economic dominance, but global influence itself. Technology today is not just a tool for progress. It is a foundation for power. It controls communication, drives economies, and enhances military capabilities. And whoever leads in key technological areas holds a significant advantage over others, which is why the competition has become so intense and so strategic. The United States has implemented restrictions on certain technologies, encouraged domestic innovation, and worked with allies to maintain standards and control access, while China has invested heavily in developing its own capabilities, focusing on self-reliance and rapid advancement, creating a situation where both nations are not only trying to advance, but also to prevent the other from gaining too much ground. And this is where the tension deepens, because this is not just about growth, it is about control over data, control over systems, and control over the infrastructure that supports modern life. And this raises a critical question. Is this technological competition simply part of economic rivalry, or is it a deliberate effort to shape the future balance of power? Because if one nation gains a decisive lead in areas such as artificial intelligence, advanced manufacturing, or communication networks, it could influence global systems in ways that are difficult to challenge. And this possibility makes the technology war one of the most important and least visible aspects of the broader strategy, as decisions made today will determine capabilities for decades to come. And if the United States is indeed operating under a long-term plan, then controlling technological advancement would be a key component of that plan, not through direct confrontation, but through regulation, investment, and strategic partnerships, ensuring that leadership is maintained while limiting the ability of competitors to surpass it. And this creates a dynamic that is both competitive and cautious, as each move is calculated and each decision carries long-term consequences, leaving us to wonder how far this technological battle will go and what the world will look like when it reaches its conclusion. War in its traditional form is unmistakable, but preparation for war can be subtle and ongoing, taking place through positioning, planning, and readiness rather than direct conflict. And in the case of the United States and China, this preparation appears to be unfolding quietly across key regions, particularly within the Indo Pacific, where military presence has increased. Exercises have become more frequent, and strategic planning has intensified, all of which are presented as necessary measures for maintaining stability and security, but also raise deeper questions about intent and long-term objectives. Military forces serve not only to fight, but to deter. to signal strength, and to influence the decisions of others. And by maintaining a visible and capable presence, the United States sends a message that is both clear and open to interpretation, a message that can reassure allies while simultaneously warning competitors. But messages in international relations are rarely interpreted in the same way by all parties. What appears as stability to one side may appear as pressure or provocation to another, and this creates a delicate balance where actions meant to prevent conflict could also contribute to rising tension. And this is where the concept of deterrence becomes central, as it relies on the belief that strength can prevent aggression, but also requires constant demonstration of capability and readiness. And this demonstration can lead to a cycle where both sides continue to prepare, continue to position, and continue to anticipate each other's moves, blurring the line between maintaining peace and preparing for potential conflict. And this raises an important question. Is this military activity purely defensive, or is it part of a broader plan that includes preparation for scenarios that are not publicly discussed? Because if such a plan exists, it would involve not just reacting to immediate threats, but anticipating future challenges, ensuring readiness for multiple outcomes, and maintaining the ability to respond quickly and effectively. And as both nations continue to strengthen their military capabilities, the situation becomes increasingly complex, shaped not only by actions, but by perceptions, expectations, and the constant possibility of miscalculation, leaving the world to watch closely and wonder how far this quiet preparation will go. After examining the layers of alliances, technology, and military positioning, the central question remains unresolved. What is the ultimate objective behind these actions, and is there truly a unified plan guiding them, or simply a series of responses to a rapidly changing world? The reality may lie somewhere in between, as the United States navigates a complex relationship with China that involves both competition and cooperation, conflict and interdependence, and long-term uncertainty. The idea of a secret plan suggests a clear and deliberate strategy aimed at shaping the future in a specific way, but global dynamics are rarely that simple, as they evolve continuously, influenced by economic shifts, political changes, and unforeseen events. And yet there are patterns that suggest intentional direction, efforts to maintain influence, to protect technological leadership, and to ensure strategic positioning across key regions, all of which point toward a desire not necessarily to stop China's rise, but to manage it, to shape the conditions under which it occurs, and to prevent it from disrupting the existing balance of power too dramatically. But this approach carries its own risks, as history has shown that managing rising powers is one of the most difficult challenges in international relations, often leading to tension, misunderstanding, and sometimes conflict. And this raises the most important question of all. Can such a strategy succeed in a world that is increasingly interconnected and unpredictable? Or will it lead to outcomes that neither side fully intends, because even the most carefully designed plans must adapt to reality, and reality does not always follow expectations? And so the concept of a secret plan becomes less about a fixed blueprint and more about an ongoing process of adjustment and anticipation, a continuous effort to navigate uncertainty while maintaining advantage. And as this process unfolds, the world remains in a state of quiet tension, watching two powerful nations move carefully around each other, each aware of the stakes, each aware of the risks, and each wondering what the other is truly planning. And perhaps the most unsettling aspect of all is not what is known, but what remains unknown. Because in a rivalry defined by strategy, perception, and possibility, the greatest question is not what is happening now, but what could happen next if the balance shifts too far and the plan, whatever it may be, reaches a point where it can no longer remain hidden or controlled. Remember to subscribe to our channel for more untold truth.